Welcome to Choose Better Living, where we come together to talk about books and subjects that leave a deep and lasting echo in each of our memories. Emotional Agility is a book written by Dr. Susan David with the purpose of helping readers clearly recognize their emotions, learn how to accept them, and gradually adjust their emotional system to become more flexible. Through this process, readers are guided toward building a life that is richer, more resilient, and more meaningful. Human emotions, ranging from rage to intense love, are natural responses of the body to influences from the surrounding environment. The emotional system exists to help us survive, adapt, and grow throughout life. Each person responds differently depending on the situation, shaped by personal history and context. Even so, emotions are not always reliable guides. At times, emotions function like an automatic radar system. They help us detect insincerity in behavior and gestures, allowing us to intuitively understand what is happening beneath the surface of a situation. In these moments, emotions can provide valuable information that logic alone may miss. However, emotions can also stir up old memories and unresolved experiences. When this happens, our perception becomes blurred as the past merges with the present. Painful experiences may resurface, overpower rational thinking, and cloud our judgment. We may find ourselves pulled directly toward emotional reefs filled with unresolved trauma and old wounds. Drawing on more than 20 years of research in emotional science, Dr. Susan David observed that the automatic emotional system within each of us frequently creates traps that lead to suffering and unhappiness. At the same time, she found that people who are able to understand and skillfully regulate their emotions have greater opportunities to experience success, fulfillment in relationships, professional growth, and a deeper sense of meaning in life. This remains true regardless of how many hardships, losses, or emotional storms they encounter. To better understand where these ideas come from, it is helpful to look at the background of the author herself. Susan David is a medical psychologist affiliated with Harvard Medical School. She holds a postdoctoral degree in the study of human emotions from Yale University. She is also a co-founder and co-chair of the Institute for Coaching at McLean Hospital, as well as the Chief Executive Officer of Evidence-Based Psychology, an organization focused on leadership development and executive consulting. In addition to her academic work, Susan David is a highly respected speaker and advisor. She has consulted senior leaders from hundreds of major international organizations, including the global accounting firm Ernst & Young, the United Nations, and the World Economic Forum. Her research and writings have appeared in leading publications such as Harvard Business Review, Time Magazine, Fast Company, and the Wall Street Journal. With this foundation in mind, the book turns to a critical question that affects many people. What causes the emotional system to become rigid in the first place? According to the author, emotional rigidity often begins when we repeatedly tell ourselves painful personal stories. These stories may sound like I am a failure, I always say the wrong thing, or I am not worthy. Over time, these internal narratives reinforce emotional patterns that trap us in self-judgment and emotional pain. This rigid emotional system can also develop from habits of thinking and assumptions we form after difficult experiences, such as an unhappy childhood, a broken marriage, or the failure of a first business venture. Learning lessons from experience is necessary and important. However, personal interpretations have limitations. Emotions are subjective, and because of this, they can become distorted by negative conclusions shaped by individual perspective rather than objective reality. When we are repeatedly exposed to negative emotions such as anger, shame, or emotional pain, the emotional system can harden. This rigidity affects both the mind and the body. We may begin to shut down emotionally, freeze our responses, and avoid situations that remind us of discomfort. Over time, this limits our ability to engage fully with life. So the question becomes how someone can escape this emotional confusion and develop healthier and more balanced emotional responses. The answer offered by Susan David is the ability to cultivate flexibility. Emotional agility does not mean controlling emotions or forcing oneself to think positively while rejecting negative thoughts. It is not about suppressing discomfort or replacing it with artificial optimism. Emotional agility is the ability to regulate emotions consciously. It involves choosing how we respond to internal warning signals in the mind. In essence, it means creating space between what we feel and how we act. Within this space, we learn to work with ourselves as we truly are, including both strengths and vulnerabilities. Over time, this practice helps us direct attention toward what genuinely matters, such as meaningful goals and deeply held values. This idea of a response space was famously described by psychiatrist Viktor Frankl in his book Man's Search for Meaning. He wrote that between external events and our response to them lies a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Emotional agility follows a structured process made up of 4 essential steps. The first step is awareness. Awareness is the ability to face our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors voluntarily, with openness, curiosity, and compassion. It involves recognizing which thoughts and emotions are useful in the present moment, and which are outdated patterns that no longer serve us, but continue to linger in the mind. Once awareness is established, the next step is separation. This step involves learning to observe thoughts and emotions from a distance rather than becoming fused with them. It requires separating personal worth from current emotional experiences. This skill is known as cognitive separation. To better understand this, imagine that you are giving an important presentation. During the presentation, you may feel anxious, insecure, or doubtful of your abilities. Through separation, you recognize that these emotions do not define your true value. They are simply temporary reactions to the pressure of the situation, not a reflection of who you are as a person. After creating this distance, the process moves toward pursuing ideals. With a calmer and clearer mind, attention shifts to what truly matters, such as core values and meaningful life goals. This step helps ensure that actions are guided by purpose rather than by momentary emotional impulses. The final step is action. This is where adjustment and meaningful change occur. Change begins with small intentional actions that align with values. By maintaining balance and consistency, these small steps build momentum. Over time, they lead to breakthroughs, personal growth, and the ability to stretch beyond perceived limitations. To understand why our emotions so often pull us off course, we first need to look at the hidden hooks inside the mind that quietly shape the stories we tell ourselves. In Hollywood films, there's always some form of bait designed to capture and hold the audience's attention. In a similar way, the human mind also contains its own hooks. These mental hooks reflect the mind's tendency to embellish, distort, and reshape stories according to personal preferences. The mind often tells stories that do not fully reflect reality. Over time, this creates confusion and inner conflict within the emotional system. These mental scripts often sound familiar. Someone may tell themselves, "I am an introvert living in a family of extroverts, and that is why nobody truly loves me." Another common story might be, "I am a failure. My old friends all have more exciting lives than I do, and they earn more money than I ever will." These stories feel convincing, yet they're often shaped more by emotion than by fact. As Susan Davey explains, there are 4 common mental hooks that frequently trap people without them even realizing it. The first hook involves blaming thoughts. This appears when a person believes their thoughts dictate their actions. For example, someone might say, "I think I will embarrass myself, so I will not talk to anyone at the party." Another example is, "I think I might say something inappropriate, so I will stay silent altogether." These statements reflect a pattern of self-directed blame. According to Viktor Frankl, when we blame our thoughts in this way, we lose the ability to create space for reflection and choice. Blaming thoughts prevents us from examining how we truly feel and limits our ability to respond deliberately. Instead of recognizing emotions clearly, we allow assumptions to dictate behavior. As this pattern continues, the mind can become increasingly unsettled, leading naturally into the second mental hook, which is a restless and scattered mind. This state is often described as a mind that jumps constantly from one thought to another. In this condition, attention is fragmented, and inner calm becomes difficult to access. When the mind is restless in this way, people are more likely to imagine worst-case scenarios or repeatedly analyze old problems that no longer serve any useful purpose. These mental habits drain energy and waste time, rather than living in the present moment. The person becomes trapped in imagined stories and mental loops. Those caught in this restless state are often pulled either into the past or into the future. They may think, "I cannot forgive what those people did to me," or they may fixate on future confrontations, such as imagining the day they quit their job and finally express their anger to their boss. In both cases, attention is removed from the present moment. As these patterns deepen, another powerful hook can emerge, one that is shaped by outdated beliefs and early life lessons. Consider the story of Kevin. Kevin genuinely desires a serious and meaningful relationship. On the surface, he appears cheerful and carefree, yet internally, he has closed his heart. He does not trust easily and keeps emotional distance from women. As a result, all of his relationships eventually fall apart. Kevin explains that his father struggled with alcoholism and had violent tendencies. His father often insulted and physically punished him whenever he made mistakes. As a child, Kevin learned to hide his sadness and suppress his emotions because showing vulnerability gave his father more opportunities to hurt him. The lesson Kevin absorbed was that if even the people closest to you can attack you, the safest option is to disconnect from your emotions and from others altogether. This coping strategy was genuinely useful when Kevin was young. It protected him emotionally and helped ensure his physical safety. What Kevin failed to recognize was that this strategy belonged to the past. As an adult, he continued to respond to life as though he were still that vulnerable child. This is why Kevin struggles to enjoy life fully and cannot truly connect with his own emotions. Kevin's story is a clear example of how the mind can remain guided by outdated and no longer useful beliefs. These beliefs once served a purpose, but over time they become limitations rather than protection. From here, another hook often takes hold, one that Susan Day refers to as blind righteousness. In many areas of life, people cling too tightly to the need for justice and the urge to prove that they are right while others are wrong. This is especially common in romantic relationships. Imagine an argument between you and your partner. You may recognize that the healthiest choice is to remain quiet, allow the tension to pass, turn off the lights, and go to sleep. Yet something inside pushes you to say one more sentence, something that proves you are right and the other person is wrong. As a result, the conflict escalates again and emotional distance grows. Blind righteousness does not only appear in romantic relationships. It often surfaces in conversations, debates, and professional environments, where the desire to be right becomes more important than understanding or connection. As these hooks tighten their grip, the question becomes how to free oneself from emotional traps. According to the author, people typically fall into two common emotional response patterns. The first pattern is emotional bottling. Individuals who respond this way attempt to resolve discomfort by pushing emotions aside and redirecting attention to other tasks. They tend to reject unwanted feelings because these emotions feel distracting, uncomfortable, or like signs of weakness or failure. For example, if someone feels dissatisfied in their romantic relationship, they may immerse themselves in a demanding work project to avoid confronting emotional pain. Although there is no specific study confirming this, the author observes that emotional bottling tends to occur more frequently among men. Another form of emotional bottling involves forcing positive thinking in an attempt to eliminate negative emotions. Rather than acknowledging discomfort, the individual tries to override it with optimism. In contrast, the second emotional response pattern is emotional rumination. This tendency is more commonly observed among women. When experiencing emotional discomfort, individuals who ruminate often sink deeply into their pain. They repeatedly reopen emotional wounds, replaying distressing experiences again and again in their minds. Those who ruminate struggle to let go. They find it difficult to separate themselves from obsessive thoughts related to past trauma, failure, personal shortcomings, or deep insecurity. At different times, everyone reacts by either bottling emotions or ruminating, and some people move back and forth between these two patterns. In reality, each response style can be useful in certain situations. For instance, if your partner suddenly starts an argument the night before an important exam, the most effective response may be to set emotional distress aside temporarily in order to focus on the exam. This is an example of emotional bottling being helpful in the short term. On the other hand, if you tend to react too quickly or become angry easily when things do not go your way, a more reflective response may be wiser. In this case, stepping back, reviewing the situation, and examining your own behavior can lead to valuable insight and growth. However, regardless of which response pattern is used, relying on either one too frequently and too rigidly can eventually create more harm than benefit. To become emotionally flexible, the first and most important step is learning not to run away, but to face uncomfortable emotions directly. If we imagine negative and distressing emotions as a monster living inside the mind, then the key to escaping its control is not avoidance, but confrontation. Confrontation does not mean defeating or destroying the monster. It does not require eliminating all negative emotions. Instead, confrontation means approaching emotions with openness and honesty and learning how to coexist peacefully with what we are feeling, even when those feelings are chaotic, painful, or deeply uncomfortable. It is essential to understand that emotional pain, anger, and hurt are natural parts of the human experience. Every emotion serves a purpose, and all emotions are necessary for personal growth and maturity. During the process of facing discomfort and painful experiences, the most important skill we must develop is self-compassion. Self-compassion does not mean deceiving ourselves or denying mistakes. True self-compassion is the ability to forgive ourselves when we fail, to clearly recognize our weaknesses and limitations, and to respond with understanding rather than harsh judgment. It also means accepting both strengths and flaws and embracing our whole authentic self. If you truly understand self-compassion, the following story may help illustrate what it looks like in practice. There is a story told about certain tribes in which, when a member committed a wrongdoing, that person would be asked to stand alone in the center of the village. The entire community would then gather around them. One by one, men, women, and children would participate in what appeared to be a form of punishment. However, instead of criticizing the wrongdoing, each person would carefully list the individual's positive qualities and meaningful contributions to the community. Although the author is not certain whether this story is historically accurate, she believes it offers a powerful lesson. Each of us should learn to treat our own mistakes in the same way the villagers treated the wrongdoing member. Being gentle with our failures is not the same as excusing them. Gentleness reflects calmness, tolerance, and forgiveness. Reflecting on mistakes is necessary, but falling into the trap of constant self-criticism and self-punishment only deepens suffering. From this foundation of compassion, emotional flexibility also requires stepping beyond the comfort zone. In this part of the book, the author shares 3 important methods that help people learn how to face emotions more effectively. One method is expressive writing. This practice was developed by psychologist James Pennebaker through research and experimentation. He discovered that when people choose to confront their emotions by writing about them, they experience significant improvements across multiple areas of life. Writing allows emotions to be processed rather than suppressed. Another powerful method is mindfulness meditation. The author encourages individuals to learn how to sit in silence and cultivate mental stillness. When the mind becomes quieter, it becomes easier to separate oneself from emotions rather than reacting impulsively to them. This separation helps reduce emotional overreaction to present experiences. A third method involves creating a pause before responding. When facing a difficult situation, especially when anger is present, it is important not to rush into speaking or reacting. Instead, practice slowing down and stepping back by silently reminding yourself, "I'm feeling angry right now," and I do not need to respond yet. This pause creates a crucial buffer that allows clearer thinking and more balanced decision-making. As emotional flexibility develops, it naturally leads into the idea of living in alignment with personal ideals. The book shares the story of film director Tom Shadyac as an example. Tom Shadyac is a highly successful director who created several blockbuster films. In the early 2000s, his films generated more than $2 billion in revenue, and he personally accumulated over $20 million in wealth. Despite this success, Shadyac surprised many people by choosing to leave his 1,600 square meter mansion in Los Angeles, selling his luxury cars and helicopter, and moving into a very small house in the suburbs. He began traveling around the city by bicycle, and when flying, he chose economy class instead of business class. While many people admired his lifestyle change, others believed he was irrational or mentally unstable. According to Shadyac, he did not concern himself with other people's opinions. He focused on his own emotional experience. He shared that his former luxurious lifestyle never brought him happiness. After letting go of material excess and choosing a simpler life, he realized he had more time and energy to invest in what truly mattered. Living according to personal ideals means aligning beliefs, values, and actions with one's own standards rather than external expectations. It involves maintaining autonomy and refusing to let life be dictated by the judgments and demands of others. To live in alignment with personal ideals, several things are necessary. First, one must learn how to selectively receive feedback from others rather than absorbing every opinion. Second, it is important to clearly define the kind of life one wants to live, whether that is a peaceful life or a life rich in experiences. Third, identifying personal core values is essential. Every individual has different values. What feels right for one person may not be appropriate for another. Defining personal values plays a foundational role in decision-making. Values act as an internal backbone that helps individuals remain grounded when facing important life choices. From here, the book emphasizes that small changes can create meaningful long-term differences. Scientific research shows that small adjustments made consistently over time can lead to positive transformation in personal development. Minor changes rarely create immediate results, but over time they compound into significant growth. The author compares this process to assembling individual frames of film. When each frame is adjusted carefully and then assembled together, the result is a complete and coherent movie that reflects a desired outcome. In addition to these themes, the book also includes chapters on the seesaw principle, emotional flexibility in professional life, and emotional development in parenting and family relationships. To conclude, the author often ends her discussion with the story of Harold and the Purple Crayon, a story she frequently tells her daughter before bedtime. Harold is a curious 4-year-old boy who possesses the ability to bring his drawings to life using a purple crayon. When Harold wants to go to the moon, he draws a path leading into the sky and walks along it until he reaches the moon. He draws an apple tree, then draws a dragon to protect the apples. When he becomes afraid of the dragon, he draws a body of water above himself to stay safe. When he gets lost, he draws doors and windows to find his way home. Harold does not know where he is going or what lies ahead, but he continues to use his purple crayon to create new possibilities. He does not try to block or suppress his emotions. Instead, he faces his fear directly and responds creatively, whether by drawing water to shield himself from the dragon or drawing a window to escape. If each of us could develop the same emotional flexibility and inner resilience as Harold, we would be better equipped to face life with confidence and curiosity, and to experience its richness more fully. Understanding emotions does not mean eliminating negative feelings, nor does it mean avoiding them. Emotional understanding means accepting both positive and negative emotions as natural parts of the emotional system. Through this acceptance, we learn how to remain flexible, transform emotional experiences, and gradually return to a state of balance and stability.